Hi, my name's Lori Petrin, and this is my cultural immersion project, the Assyrian people. As a personal note, I chose to learn about the Assyrian culture because of a cultural event I attended back in October 2013, an Assyrian wedding. Before this class even started, I had a personal experience in 2004, which caused me to be very fearful of Middle Eastern people. I'm not speaking of 9/11, which occurred in 2001. This experience occurred in my own family, and it caused me to have a fear against a culture, not just an individual. This event changed the lives of everyone in our family and will always be with me. But since then, I have, through no decision of my own, been put in the path of a few Middle Eastern people who have changed my thinking and therefore healed my fear. I felt this was the perfect culture for me to study so that I could fully understand the culture and the people in it. The history of the Assyrian people. The Assyrians of today are the descendants of the ancient Assyrian people, one of the earliest civilizations emerging in the Middle East, and have a history spanning over 6,000 years. The Assyrians are Christian with a unique language, culture, and heritage. Although the Assyrian Empire ended in 612 BC, there are a lot of recorded details of the continuous presence of the Assyrian people till the present time. Assyria, the land of the indigenous Assyrians, was partitioned after World War I by the victorious Allies, and is currently under occupation by Kurds, Turks, Arabs, and Persians. No longer Assyrian land. Forced immigration. The Assyrians are a stateless people now and continue to be religiously and ethically persecuted in the Middle East due to Islamic fundamentalism, leading to land expropriations and forced immigration to the West. Assyrians speak Aramaic, an ancient language once spoken over much of the Middle East. It is the same language that was spoken by Jesus Christ, and the Assyrians have their own alphabet, which form the basis for ours. It's 22 letters that's written from right to left, and many Assyrians are only now learning to write in their native alphabet because it was banned by the Iraqi government. According to the 2011 American Community Survey estimates, there are over 110,000 Assyrians in the U.S. The biggest population is in Michigan at over 34,000, then California at over 22,000, and Illinois at over 15,000. Cultural traditions. Assyrians also have a unique style of music and dance, which is very joyous. It includes traditional songs, like folk songs, as well as new favorites. And Assyrian musicians from places around the world where Assyrians have settled can be heard on YouTube. Assyrians in the U.S. do not wear traditional Assyrian-style clothing. Instead, they select the American fashions according to the greater modesty of their culture. But for special events like weddings, though, Assyrian women make beautifully decorated scarves that are used in a traditional dance, which I'll show later. As Christians, Assyrians celebrate Easter and Christmas. They also have other holidays like Assyrian New Year on April 1st and Assyrian Martyrs' Day on August 7th. Our culture is a gift. Assyrians in the U.S. struggle to maintain traditional values and customs at a time when many Americans have turned away from the old values on which our country was built. Our culturally diverse nation has been a safe haven for Assyrian Christians, but they have a gift for us as well. Perhaps they can help us regain the integrity and purpose that we have lost from our own culture. I know this project has guided me thinking of how my world has changed, and not for the better at times in my lifetime. The children. Assyrian children are raised to honor their history, and family is extremely important to them. I saw that in my cultural event. Assyrian parents raise their children in the Christian faith and teach them that is a very large part of their history, the persecution of their faith. The children are well educated. Education is important for both males and females, and Assyrian is the first language that they speak, only that in their homes to preserve their culture. The parents are strict disciplinarians. Tradition states you live with your family until you are married. No matter how old you are, you have a curfew, and unless you are with a group of people, it is comparable to what we would give a middle school child here in America. In my experience with children of all cultures, from preschool age through high school, there's a pride in who you are and where you came from in a person from a diverse culture that does not show itself in someone who was born and raised here in America. Family and culture importance is not as present, probably due to the fact that in America born have not experienced persecution. When something is challenged, we tend to huddle together and try to protect what is dear to us. Children from diverse cultures are typically not the children we have behavior problems with in our preschool. In fact, to my recollection, I can't think of one in 13 years. The Assyrian people are strict with their children, very protective, and that could come from living in a country where they were not safe to play outside and be without an adult to protect them. The book I read was an autobiography, An Assyrian Dream, the Mirza family story, written by Julius Mirza. This story is about a family who had a dream to immigrate to America and all the sacrifices they had to make to fulfill that dream. The dream really started one generation back from the author of this book, William Mirza, Julius's father, who was born in 1904. William accomplished that dream, but after he raised and educated his children, he sent them ahead of he and his wife for a better life. William Mirza worked for an oil company and lived with his family in Iraq on a compound for the company's employees. This family was not poor, but still they lived in fear and chose to send their children out of Iraq to protect them while they got an education. This meant not seeing them grow up, not seeing them for years at a time due to the expense of travel. For my film, I watched Facing Extinction, Assyrian Christians in Iraq. This film is a documentary of the persecution, kidnapping, and murder of Assyrian Christians in Iraq. The crew traveled into threatened Christian communities to film the stories. Included in the film is actual footage filmed by the terrorists themselves performing acts of violence against innocent Assyrians. The film was produced to bring light to the situation in Iraq. The Iraqi government is not protecting the Christians. The U.S. State Department has not allowing Assyrian Christians to immigrate to America, and thousands are forced to leave their homes and become refugees in Jordan and Syria, where they are unwelcome. The people in the documentary that were interviewed told stories of loved ones being kidnapped and held for ransom. When the family pays the ransom, sometimes they return the loved ones, and sometimes they kill the loved one and send the head back to the family. The documentary was so heartbreaking and hopeless, and the plight of these people and those in other countries is so unbelievable to me. My cultural event, an Assyrian wedding. On October 26, 2013, Shamiriam Mogadassi and Andy Patterson were married, and I was lucky enough to be invited. The dance lessons. Shimmy, the bride, always thought it would be more fun for the wedding guests that were not Assyrian to know the dances so everyone could join in. She held dance lessons for those of us who did not know how. Her relatives were on hand to dance with us and teach us the steps. I've never before met a group of people so proud of who they are and where they came from, willing to share with us their heritage. I was honored to be a part of this joyous occasion, and I only hope I do it justice in this presentation. The dance is called Lesbi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and this dance would be done before going to war as a warm-up and returning from war as a celebration. The scarf you see in the leader's hand is called Agelika, and the person who carries it is called a Rishkega.
Huge.
Good job. You have to turn the Assyrian on to gas that nice.
Hey, Ryan. Good job. Let's together, Kayla. Very nice. Woohoo!
You're very good. Thank you. God bless you.
My personal interview. I interviewed Shemiriam Mogadassi Patterson on April 13th. Shemi, as we call her, was born in Tehran, Iraq 28 years ago and continued to live there with her family until she was 21 years old. Her childhood. I asked Shemi many questions about her childhood, and she described a strict but loving upbringing. She told me that it was not safe to play outside, and that when her mother took her and her little sister Nina to the store, they always held her hand and her mother would weave through the crowd so that people could not touch them. Shemi did attend a preschool, grade school, and high school in Tehran. She said if you were Christian, you were separated from those who were not Christian in classrooms. She did study English in school, like we study a foreign language, but did not become fluent until she moved to the United States. Immigrating to America. The reason Shemi's family immigrated to the United States was because in Tehran, everyone takes a competency test when they graduate from high school. This test is very important because your score determines where you will be accepted for college. She and her family had been told she had little chance of being accepted into the most popular college in Tehran, but she wanted to try. She studied many long hours for her test and scored high enough to get her name on the list for the college. When her family did not get the usual mailings from the school, Shemi and her father visited the school to find out what the holdup was. They told her the reason she was not being accepted into the school was because she was Christian. They said if she was willing to fill out her papers again and let them fill in her religion, she could be accepted. That was when her parents made the decision to leave Iran and immigrate to the United States to give their daughters a better life. Shemi described the long and stressful process of applying for a passport and leaving most of their things behind because they had to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. Childhood experiences. I asked Shemi about the persecution she witnessed as a child, and she told me many things were for public display. Hangings and stonings were put in the papers and done in public to show the Christians what could happen to them. The women would be stopped if they were not covered properly. If your scarf fell off your head and uncovered your hair or shifted, you would be stopped by the authorities. It was not safe to be alone out in public. Family cultural traditions. Shemi is the oldest of 2 girls in her family. If she would have had a brother, he would have been the most important child in the family, as is the custom of her culture. Being the oldest child is only important if you don't have a brother. Shemi's family identifies closely with the traditions of her culture, even though she did marry an American. She tries to meld the 2 cultures together so that she can learn ours, and we can be a part of hers. The family leader is her father. In Iraq, there was a leader that was Christian, and there was a leader that was Muslim for the country. The health care was good in Iran. She felt comparable to the U.S. And when I asked about personal space, I learned that in Iran, like many other foreign countries, you have no personal space. It is acceptable to be shoulder to shoulder with strangers on the street, in a line, or in a bus. I was surprised to hear her say she much prefers the American way in that regard and prefers to have personal space from strangers. In her country, if you are Muslim, you do not make eye contact. The Assyrian food. As I experienced at the wedding and in different activities, Assyrians have much the same food as most of the Middle East. A lot of dolma and kebabs, rice, hummus, things like that. The assignment was an absolutely great experience for me. I did have some bias and stereotypes due to my life experience coming into this, but I have never felt any bias towards the kids I work with. The cultures of the children are very interesting to me. I see the differences in the way the different cultures parent, yet I find that in most situations we all show love to our children much the same way. We all want them to be well behaved and respectful. We hold our families close to our hearts and have the same dreams for our children.